Welcome to this new video on the Reddit Storylane. The birth of May felt like the start of a new chapter in my life, one that was full of hope, excitement, and a deep sense of responsibility. There is a profound joy that comes with becoming a mother. It's not just a personal transformation, but a fundamental shift in how you see the world. Every smile from your newborn, every little grasp of her tiny hand, fills you with an overwhelming sense of purpose. I had imagined that this time of my life would be pure bliss, a time of celebration with family, friends, and the people closest to us. But the reality, as I was learning, was much more complex. While the joy of May's birth was undeniable, it also came with challenges that I had never anticipated. I had always understood that motherhood was hard, but I didn't realize just how difficult the journey could be when complicated family dynamics were thrown into the mix. It wasn't just the sleepless nights or the exhaustion from caring for a newborn. It was the emotional toll of trying to navigate relationships that had become strained in ways I never expected. Rick and I had been together for years before we decided to start a family. We were a solid couple, and I felt like we had a deep understanding of each other. We had learned to navigate the ups and downs of life together, and I thought we were ready for what lay ahead. But nothing truly prepares you for the overwhelming transformation that happens when you become parents. It's not just the physical changes, the late nights, or the endless diapers. It's the emotional upheaval. Your priorities shift, your energy is drained, and you start to realize that the family dynamics you once took for granted are no longer what they seemed. For the most part, Rick's family had always been a source of comfort and support. We weren't one of those families that had Sunday dinners every week or spent holidays together in large groups, but we were close in our own way. I had gotten along with Rick's sisters, Anna and Emma, and we had always enjoyed a healthy, respectful relationship. Anna, in particular, had become more like a friend than a sister-in-law over the years. She was thoughtful, kind, and someone I knew I could turn to in times of need. Emma was the same. Our connection was always warm and genuine. But my relationship with Rick's mother, Rachel, had always been different. From the very beginning, there had been an undercurrent of tension between us. It wasn't anything overt, but there was always something that made me feel like I was walking on eggshells when she was around. At first, I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just a matter of adjusting to a new family dynamic. But over time, it became impossible to ignore. And when May was born, it became clear that the tension between us was only going to escalate. Rachel is a force of nature. At 53, she had spent her life shaping the family with her strong will and authoritarian demeanor. She had always been the one to make the decisions, to set the rules, and to ensure that everyone followed them. And for the most part, everyone had fallen in line, at least on the surface. But what became apparent to me and to Rick was that Rachel's control was based not on love or care, but on an unyielding need to maintain power. She demanded things be done her way, and when people, especially me, didn't comply, the results were far from understanding. Pregnancy was a difficult experience for me, and I don't think Rachel ever fully understood that. She didn't seem to grasp the physical toll it took on my body. I was exhausted, constantly dealing with aches and pains, and the pressure of carrying a child was affecting me in ways I hadn't anticipated. But to Rachel, none of that mattered. She expected me to be just as available, just as active, and just as willing to please as I had been before I was pregnant. When I couldn't keep up with her demands, the tension between us grew. Her inability to empathize with my situation made things even worse, and I found myself growing resentful of the way she treated me. One of the first real moments of tension came during Anna's wedding. I had been asked to be the maid of honor, an honor I had been excited about. But as soon as I found out I was pregnant, it became clear to me that I would no longer be able to fulfill the duties of that role. I was already beginning to feel the strain of pregnancy, and I knew that attending the wedding and standing up as maid of honor would be too much for me. So, I made the difficult decision to step down. I didn't want to disappoint Anna, but I knew it was the right choice for my health and well-being, as well as the health of my baby. When I told Rachel that I couldn't be the maid of honor anymore, I expected her to be understanding. I thought she would see that I was making a responsible decision. But instead, her reaction was one of anger and frustration. She couldn't fathom why I wouldn't want to be part of the wedding as planned. She didn't understand that pregnancy wasn't just an inconvenience. It was physically demanding and at times incapacitating. But instead of offering empathy, she lashed out. The tension between us that had been simmering for months reached a boiling point, and I began to wonder if I had made a mistake by ever becoming part of this family. Anna's wedding day arrived, and despite everything that had happened, I still wanted to be there for her. I wasn't going to let my pregnancy keep me away from supporting my sister-in-law on her special day. I had never wanted to be the center of attention, but I also didn't want to feel like I was being pushed aside. I didn't want to be the pregnant woman who couldn't participate, so I made the decision to push through the pain and discomfort. The day was a blur of emotions. My body was exhausted, and I could barely keep up with the pace of the events. My feet were swollen and my back ached. But I tried to keep a smile on my face, not wanting to draw attention to myself. Anna, as always, was a caring and thoughtful person, and she made sure I was comfortable. Despite the pain, I was determined to be there for her. Little did I know, this day would forever change the course of my relationship with Rachel. As the ceremony approached, something went terribly wrong. Rachel had been hovering around me all day, constantly checking to make sure I was okay. But she failed to notice the signs that I was going into labor. When I felt the first contractions, I realized that something was happening, and I began to panic. Instead of reacting with concern, Rachel did the unthinkable. She locked me in the bathroom and took my phone. She told me I couldn't leave until after the wedding. She had no idea what was happening, and yet she seemed more concerned with maintaining the appearance of normalcy than with my well-being. In that moment, I felt utterly trapped. I couldn't call Rick. I couldn't get help, and I was alone in a bathroom, terrified that something was going wrong. The panic was overwhelming, but even more so was the sense of betrayal. I had trusted Rachel to support me, to be there for me in a moment of need, but instead, she had locked me away as if I didn't matter. As I stood there, alone, I could feel the strength draining from my body. I fainted, and the next thing I knew, I woke up in the hospital with Rick by my side. His face was pale with fear, and I could see the deep concern in his eyes. He explained what had happened, how Rachel had tried to keep me locked away for the sake of the wedding. His anger was palpable, but it was mixed with a deep sense of gratitude that he had been able to save us. It was only his timely intervention that had prevented a disaster. But the real horror of the situation wasn't just the physical danger I had been in. It was that Rachel still didn't seem to understand what she had done. She had put her need to control the situation above my safety and well-being, and that was something I couldn't overlook. For the first time, I understood just how far Rachel was willing to go to maintain her grip on the family, and it made me realize that our relationship would never be the same again. Rick and I spent weeks processing what had happened. We had many conversations about what this meant for our future, for our family, and for our relationship with Rachel. It wasn't an easy decision for Rick, but it became clear that his loyalty had to lie with me and with May. He couldn't allow his mother to continue to cause harm to our family. Rachel's behavior had crossed a line, and that line was unforgivable. Rick made the difficult decision to cut ties with his mother. It wasn't an easy decision for him, and it was one that came with a deep sense of loss. But it was also a decision that allowed us to reclaim our family's peace and safety. In the weeks that followed, the tension between Rachel and me reached new heights. She tried to reach out to Rick, but he was firm in his decision. There was no going back. For me, the pain of losing a relationship with my mother-in-law was tempered by the relief of no longer being in a position where I had to constantly navigate her controlling behavior. I no longer had to tiptoe around her or fear her reactions. The emotional toll had been exhausting, but now I could focus on what really mattered: May, Rick, and our little family. It wasn't an easy road. There were moments of sadness and doubt. I had hoped for a more harmonious relationship with my in-laws. I had dreamed of a family that would support each other, where we could lean on one another in times of need. But the reality was far different. Sometimes, family dynamics are not what we wish them to be, and no amount of hope or effort can change that. As the days turned into weeks, I began to realize something important. My focus needed to shift. May was the center of my W.